Welcome to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast with your host, legendary powerlifter and strength athlete, Chad Ikes. For most, the journey of strength starts in the gym, but should inevitably expand through all aspects of life. Join us as we discuss all things strength. Now, here's your host, Chad Ikes.
Hey everybody, today we're very fortunate to have Joe Sullivan on, probably because I just kept bugging him till eventually he had to find some time to get me to shut up. For those of you that don't know Joe's been lifting for a long time, probably longer than I think most people understand. And he's done I don't even know how many all-time world records you've got now.
Six open and one junior, if that means anything.
Yeah, that's like I always get on people's open powerlifting, and you have a raw squat of 850, wraps is 881. I don't know why it says single ply. You have 505. You must not have done single ply for a long ass time.
I started in single ply way back.
That's probably one of your early ass ones.
Yeah, some of the entries are so goofy on there because it doesn't have all of my meets, which is funny to talk about, like how long I've been doing this, because my first meet was in 2007. And I was telling somebody the other day where it's like, and I know you remember, there used to not be like computers at meets. It was just the cards. And literally the guy over the mic was like, okay, Bill Smith is lifting, Bob Reynolds is in the hole, and Steve Johnson is on deck. And then would literally do that all day,
right?
Fill out the cards. And it's like, one of the Michigan, I guess record keeper for USAPL, they lost a bunch of the records. So a big portion of my high school meets aren't on there, but those were all single ply.
Yeah, because it says you started at 08, and then there's this big gap to 12, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's been consistent that whole fucking time through there.
Yeah, and then that's all the high school stuff.
You actually start, and it's what I really like is because I think people don't realize this. You're not like this gifted fucking lifter guy. You were kind of a chubby kid.
Kind of.
And you started training, and you didn't, you're the perfect consistency. You kept going consistently. I mean, I know I tell people all the time, I'm like, dude, Joe moved and lived in different places. And he just trained with these better people. And he actually put a lot into this sport. It's not like you look at Joe and go, God, he's a genetic freak. Or I saw one of your posts earlier where somebody's like, he just has perfect squat build. It's bullshit. He actually worked for a long time and studied and educated himself and kept grinding. You're not the genetic all-time world record holder. You built yourself to do that.
Yeah. Thank you, dude. And I mean, I think that's one of the things that is important for me to kind of talk about when I make posts, and just kind of make not for my own perspective to be braggadocious or anything, or be like, oh yeah, I work for this, whatever. It's just, it kind of goes to show people that because when I first started, in my first meet in 2007, I was a 275 pound lifter lifting in single ply. I hit I think it was 1,075 pound total. No one looked at that kid and was like, oh, he's going to be great one day. Yeah. They looked at that kid and they were like, hey, good for him. Good for him.
He's trying.
That's cool. Good for that dude, and who would have known, but I kept doing it, and I wrestled in college. And then when I didn't want to wrestle anymore, I was like, well, I still love powerlifting. I'm just going to stick with this. And I never stopped. And 13 years into my competitive career is when I broke my first all-time world record. And one of that along with the fact that my first total was 1,075, and my best ever total in wraps in sleeves is 2,069. So I just missed it, but my best total in wraps was 2,131. I've literally put over 1,000 pounds on my competitive total over the course of my career, and that's years and years and years. But
and I mean, honestly, the first one was single ply, the other ones are raw too.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like I don't know. I think it's just I think it's worth considering for a lot of people, whether it's like somebody listening to this podcast or somebody just starting off their journey in strength. It's like you never know how far you can take something unless you try, and
Hmm.
not only trying, but trying for a pretty damn good period of time.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I mean, the people, it's funny because I kind of do the same thing, and it's like even saying it sometimes in my own head, I'm like, "Gee, Chad, are you bragging or what? Like, shut the fuck up." But it's like,
Hmm.
no, I'm not actually bragging. I just want people to know that it doesn't matter where you are now if you keep going. And I think another thing to be said for you is because I know lifters that have just been lifting for 20 years
Hmm.
and they get to a certain point and they stay there. You were putting in the time, but you've been continually to this day are still learning, still talking to other lifters, still coming up with other ideas, still trying different stuff. Like some people get caught in that trap of I just need to get stronger and then they just keep doing the same thing over and over. Like ever since I've known you, which has been quite a while now,
Hmm.
you're always talking to other people. You're always doing something different. You're always expanding and trying new things so that you're not stuck in this one thing because what worked now might not work later. What worked at a
Hmm.
600-pound squat might not work at an 800-pound squat. You're going to have injuries. You're going to have age. You're going to have different things in life. So you got to be willing to actually study and think and find what works for you at each individual time.
Yeah, exactly, dude. And I think like even with the fact being that like when I first started to, or not first started to do that, but like I've been doing it my entire training career. But when I was doing it as a younger lifter, like mid, I don't know, like 2014, 15, 16, like that period of time, I did all of that and I surrounded myself with people that were better than me, training at Elite FTS, like traveling to meets out of state, doing all of that because it was from a selfish point of view. Like I wanted to continue to get better and I wanted to continue to pursue my own like improvement. And I was like, I like, luckily for me, I had a really good role model in my father and my dad who like was very big on telling me that like there's always be a student of the game because he was a power lifter way back in the 80s. He I think he only did bench only. I'm not sure. He didn't compete much, but he trained in the same gym that Cone trained in San Diego when they were both out in San Diego. And he always just made it clear to me, like, always be a student of the game, always understand that like no matter how good you get, there's someone out there that's better than you, and there's always more opportunity for you to learn. And when I was very much like just athlete Joe, I oriented myself in that way to try to improve my numbers and just get stronger and keep getting better and better and better. But now being like in my 30s and having like a lot of really talented people, both in terms of achievement and also ambition, on my coaching roster, because that's what I do full time now. I still try to do that because it puts me in a better position to serve the people that work with me. Because like if I just had one principle or like one viewpoint or one perspective, and I could only approach a problem from like my own, like my single frame of mind. If that didn't work for someone that was like looking to me for answers, then I'm like, what do I do now? Do I reach out for help or do I do this or whatever? It's like, fuck, I don't know if this is going to work, bro. But now that I have not only so many different perspectives that have like helped me establish my own like viewpoint or like different ways to look at
Mm-hmm.
things. I also have this killer network that is like one of the things that I'm most proud of, because like I could call, like, if I had a guy who was like trying to squat like 1,300 pounds and multiply, or something where it's like I understand the principles, but like, Jesus fucking Christ, I've never had that much weight on my back. We kind of have to like think a little bit differently with
Mm-hmm.
that. I could call Chad Ikes or like Dave Tate or like somebody,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
or someone who's doing I don't know, a guy who's in like Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Like I because I talk to like different people in terms of sports performance and nutrition or whatever, I could call a couple of guys over there and like figure it out. You know,
Yeah.
it's a real it. I've always I always just think it's easier, or it's not easier, but I just think it's better if we operate from that like abundance mentality where it's like we can all elevate one another and like
Yes.
learn from this person, learn from this person. If he wins, I win concurrently, than rather being like, well, it's my way, so I'm gonna stick with my way. I don't know what this is, so I'm like, I'm not gonna fuck with it type stuff, you know?
I always say I want to be the tide because I want to raise all ships.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
interesting. I was talking. I think me and AJ talked when I had him on there, Roberts, and we were talking about coaching, and it's so interesting looking through social media to me because you see, I know a lot of good coaches that have 10, maybe 20,000 followers, and I see some of these coaches that have millions, and I'm like, these guys don't know shit, man. And me
Mm-hmm.
and AJ were talking, and it's almost like I would rather have a coach like you're describing who goes, listen, here's generally how I do it, but I know I need to meet what you need. And I'm willing, I know that there's a lot of different ways to get where we need to be. I want to help you find the best one for you. And you're willing to have, and you have that stable of other people that you can go back to. But it seems like the guys with the millions and millions of followers are the guys that go, this is what you need to do. I know what you need to do. You need to do this exercise. You need to do this. And it's like, dude, if you really knew, you would know that it doesn't really work that way.
Mm-hmm. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's like the more confident you are in something, you sometimes, it's not always, but the more confident you are, the higher likelihood it is that like you might not actually know everything that you're talking about,
Right.
because like extreme confidence is kind of dumb, you know? It's just the nature of the beast. Like I remember even thinking about like back in 2015, 16, like that time frame, I think about some of the opinions that I had and I was fucking confident. I was like, I'm right. I know I'm right. Absolutely know I'm right. I fucking argued with motherfuckers on the internet. There are still people that are probably like, fuck Joe Sullivan because I was a dick. I was a dick. You know, I will readily admit that. But at the same time, I look back on it now and I'm like, huh, maybe I didn't know everything I thought I did. Or it's like, I still think I'm kind of right, but I probably approached that in a little bit off manner because
Yeah.
like they were kind of right too. We were both valid in what we were saying. It's just I was looking at it from over here and they were looking at it from over here.
I
So
think there's actually been a couple of times in my life where I'm like, that's it. I got it, dude. I got this shit down. I know this shit. And then life inevitably gives me a drop kick to the head. And I'm like, okay, shit, maybe I don't know it. Now I'm just like, you know what? I admit it. I don't know it all. But I'm getting
yep.
pretty good at figuring it out.
Exactly, dude. And that's the secret, you know. And I always laugh at the social media thing because like I have a lot of followers. I know, but at the same time, it's like you have to understand social media is a fucking game,
It's a
dude.
game.
Like so many of those guys with like millions or like hundreds and hundreds of thousands, like they make those crazy statements because they know well, one, they may not know that they're crazy statements and they may just like buy their own bullshit and drink their own Kool-Aid and who like fuck, who am I don't know, like that's just what they're fucking doing and there's
Yeah.
always crazy out there. But there's a lot of guys who do that shit because like I not to go completely tangent, but like
I love tangents, man. Seriously.
living in Vegas, and I know you're up in Reno still, right?
Yeah, not for hopefully not much longer though.
Okay, got it. But living in Vegas, there's like a lot of social media. There's a lot of like influencer content and
Mm,
like that type of vibe here, and it's its own thing. Like I engage in it a little bit. Like I do similar shit just to kind of like, but try to put my own spin on it to
right.
like have it like actually nuanced and whatnot. But a lot of those guys, like just talking to them in real life and like having like personal relationships or like just conversations with them, they do that like absolutist statement where it's like, it has to be this, or like fuck it, or the guys walking through the grocery store where it's like, this chemical will kill you, and like fuck that shit. Like they do that intentionally because they know it's not right, but they do it because they know it's gonna fucking blow up on the internet.
Yeah.
And like, ultimately it gets more people on their page. Ultimately it gets more people seeing their products that they're selling or whatever, and they make more money. It's just social media is so weird, dude.
Well, I mean, I could look
Yeah.
at that from a different side too. Like, go, okay, so if you get someone to follow you because you do something like that, but then they actually start learning when they really follow your content, it's kind of a positive then.
Exactly, dude. Like, is it really bad at that point? It's
So
just like, yeah.
one of the guys that fascinates me, and I'm going to bring him up because I know you know him, is Mike
Uh,
Israetel.
yes.
And I have not been able to get a hold of him. I would love to talk to him on this podcast.
I literally just was DMing him earlier today, so I'll mention this to him.
Because
But
he says stuff sometimes, and I'll see the clip, and I'm like, "What the fuck did he just say?" No, he can't. Why did he fucking? I'm like all confused,
yep.
and then I
So
go, I know he's doing that because I think he's a little bit of a smartass, which I like.
not a little bit. He's literally the most sarcastic dude that you will ever talk to. And he's incredibly intelligent and incredibly quick-witted.
Yeah,
Because I'm sure, because it pissed me off when I saw it. Like, I love Mike, but I've literally talked to him and Jared both. And I'm like, I'm gonna make response content to some of your guys' dumb shit because people don't know that you're fucking kidding.
yes,
Don't know
that's
that
the
they're
problem.
sarcastic. That's because he made that one video where he's like, I think about violence all the time. I think about squeezing people's heads off and gouging eyes out and fucking I take steroids and it makes me want to kill everybody and I don't fucking blah blah blah. And it's like, from my perspective, it's like, yeah, we're all crazy. I think I've gotten into fights. I'm a violent guy. I know how to control it. The thing is, this shit doesn't make you do that.
Yes,
It brings out characteristics that are already inside of you. If you're a violent person or have a capacity for violence, which Mike does because he's a very talented jujitsu athlete. I was a collegiate wrestler who also worked as security for a long, long time. Capacity for violence, it brings it out
yeah,
sometimes, but it's still on you to control it. And I hate that fucking shit sometimes because I love Mike. I
yeah.
love Mike. I love Jared. But like, people don't know that Mike is being sarcastic with a lot of the stuff that he posts. And
Right.
he's never going to clarify it because of what we just said. It makes the content go fucking crazy.
Yeah,
And
and
then people
he's
end up
doing
learning.
good, and his app's doing good, and like
Yeah.
I'm so fascinated. Like every time I say, God, I gotta figure out how to get a hold of him and get him on here because it makes it like at first I'm like, what the fuck did he? Why did he? And then I start thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, I know what he's doing.
Because it riles you up, and then you're like,
Yes.
this motherfucker, what the fuck are you? And then it's like, wait a minute, wait, he's probably did that intentionally. You're like,
Yeah, then
oh
I'll go watch a video or something. And I'm like, okay, now it makes sense.
yeah, yes, I love Mike, but that's like, even if let me tell you a story. This is because actually this is a good story, and if Mike ends up listening to this, I apologize for like just recounting it. I don't think that he'll care, but just have to say it. The first time that Brianni and I actually hung out with Mike, like outside of the gym, and like when him and his wife Crystal lived in Las Vegas, we'd go get sushi like pretty much every week, just like after training sometimes. So we did this regularly after a while. But like, the first time that we went out to dinner, Mike's immediate, like, first interaction with me and Brianni was literally like, so how do you guys like to fuck one another? Just completely deadpan. And it's like, Mike is the type of guy that is so smart, so effective at what he does. He's a very good businessman, he's a very good coach, he's a very good educator. He's just very good at what he does. He knows exactly how far he can take things and then just reel them back to get people laughing about it, because like, if you get Mike on this
He's
podcast,
probably studying you too. He probably asks these questions
that
like,
that
and then analyzes your response to the
he's he's
craziness.
he's he's that type of guy. Like, he is. I know that, like, everybody says, oh, this guy's like one of the smartest people I know, one of the smartest people I know. Like, Mike is, it's stereotypical, but he's very much that guy. He'll do these things to intentionally get reads on people and be like, how, like, are you cool Or are you going to get pissed off if I fuck with you? Or are you going to get pissed off if I fuck with you, but like fuck with me back? So then we're going to have fun with it. It's like he does it intentionally, and he's good. He's good at what he does and everything in the professional world in terms of like antagonistic shit and like riling people up. He's also very good at that. So it's like no wonder that he's successful in both of those
And it seems
endeavors.
like he has guys with dry sense of humor crack me up. And he
Yeah.
seems like he's
Yes.
like he'll just say shit and you won't even there's no expression. And you're like, dude, how did you say that without not chuckling or laughing or making some sort of face?
That is exactly it. He's Mike's a super interesting guy, but like even me, like, because I love the RP dudes. Like Jared's one of my best friends. Mike is like I've actually Mike actually, and this is funny to reference because it shows how long that I've been doing this stuff and how long Mike has actually been doing this stuff. But Mike wrote me a letter of recommendation in 2014 to go get my master's. And he, like, it's just funny because like that was shit, that was a decade ago now. That's actually insane to say out loud. But like that's how long I've known of Mike and how long we've like communicated. So it's just a very ongoing thing. Like we've all been doing this shit way too long. But he's a cool guy. He's very
I don't
smart.
think most people really understand, especially with social media. I don't think they understand how long people been doing this.
hmm I'm like, to that point, I've honestly been really curious to see what like the state of social media is going to look like in another decade, because like you and I think about it and are like, okay, I can recall like this is what it was like back in 2015 or like 2010, where it's like learn to train seminars, like Elite FTS articles, T Nation,
Yeah, I
bodybuilding.com,
think you had
Outlaws.
some forums starting up at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, and it's like there were always these like not leaders, but like guys that you knew, like pillars of the community, that it was like this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. And now in 2024, like there still is that, but it's different. It's weird because there's like these interesting little like micro celebrities that like pop up, because there are dudes in the IPF, or like even like WRPF, like untested feds, multiply, whoever it is. There are guys that like get really good really quick,
Mm-hmm.
but they're gone just as quickly, or they really lean into the social media aspect where it's like they're trying to make money from it, which like more power to them, like we all have to make a living. But it becomes very clear who those people are by like how long they actually spend doing or participating in a sport, and then like giving back to a sport. Because like look at so many of the influencers out there, like how many of those guys are actually like either like sponsoring meets or like volunteering at meets or like being a ref or like just doing the shit that like actually facilitates the sport happening, or are they just kind of like participating in it in like a glorified way. I'm really curious to see how it's going to go over the next like
It
couple of
almost seems
years.
like it's and I think this exacerbates the persona that people just come up and get really strong. Because it
hmm
seems like back in our day, you'd start reading articles and you'd start seeing people at nationals and you'd kind of start following their career. And you would
hmm
see them grow and get stronger. And hey, what are they doing now? Where now it's like people watch social media and they just want to see the big lifts.
hmm
And then so they're not watching guys that are coming up. They're seeing them when they're big. And then when they stop competing, even though they're coaching or they're still learning, they kind of stop watching them for the next new guy that just came up. And so they're always
hmm
watching this little window of people's careers and not seeing what they did to get there. Or, since I'm old now, seeing like who are the lifters that were on top, but now they're still healthy at 50 and 60, 70 years old. Because
hmm
I mean, I would hope if you're in your 25 or 30, you're thinking enough to go, well, okay, this is not my living. This is what I do, and I want to be healthy my whole life. So, who are the guys that destroyed themselves? Who are the guys that got through healthy?
hmm
Kind of a thing.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah,
we're just stuck on this little popularity, this little world of distraction, where we're only seeing people at their very peaks and their very bests?
I know it's cliche to do, but I swear to God, I blame TikTok. Like I
Yes.
seriously, like it's, and I mean, I upload shit on TikTok. Like it's the same fucking thing as Instagram, but it's just we've whittled down or like narrowed down our focus and our attention spans to just such tiny little blips. Because like
Mhm.
you were saying, that reminded me of like the attitude on Instagram, at least for me, and this was my perspective, so it might be slightly different than yours or whatever. But I remember being in like the mid 2010s where it's like I would watch lifters on Instagram, like watch people that I was competing against or people that I just gave a shit about seeing their stuff. Because back then, what on Instagram, like the vibe of Instagram, people would just upload their lifting. It was like, this is what I did today and this is how it went. It was that was what Instagram was in powerlifting, and it's like you could literally track. Like I remember, especially like dude that really sticks out in my mind was like me watching Dan Green in like 2014 ish time frame,
Right.
where it's like I knew Dan squatted on Monday and he overhead pressed on Wednesday and he deadlifted on Friday. And it's like I don't know if I'm right in that, but like I knew that those particular days were the days that he did that shit because every fucking Monday he uploaded what he did for squats,
Mm-hmm.
and then he uploaded what he did for this and what he did for that, and you could see people like you could track lifters' trajectories going into meets, going into their competitions, and like see that actual progress occur, and it got you more invested in the journey. I guess I would think, and it gave you, or at least for me, it gave me a little bit more appreciation or understanding how long it took and how boring some of it was,
Mm-hmm.
because it's chopping wood to a point. It's just like putting in the monotonous, arduous work for that big goal. But now, with the fact that people really like the shorter, even in terms of like getting more engagement and whatever, everybody's like shorter reels. You got to do shorter reels because it's about like fucking pop, like information and then go, and then information and
Mm-hmm.
go. It's like people just want to see like the big lift and then be done, or like the funny thing and then be done, or the educational thing and then be done. It's like fuck, we have there's no, and I don't want to that's not entirely true, but like what I was going to say is like there's no investment, there's no like no actual care given to like the work behind the expression of the thing. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know how any of us would solve that, and that's part of why I'm saying like it's really interesting or curious to think about like what things are going to look like in 5 or 10 years, because I know I'm still going to be doing this in some capacity,
Yeah.
and I just don't know what that environment is going to look like, honestly. Whether it's bad or good, it's just a really interesting thing to think about because
I
it's so fucking different
I hope
already.
it gets good, but I mean, along those same lines, like, there's a couple younger lifters, and I can get a lot of older people on my podcast because I know them, but there's a lot of young lifters I'm trying to get a hold of, and I usually have trouble getting a hold of them, because they're so fucking popular now. You can send them messages all day long, and they don't have time to even look at them. But
Hmm.
you'll look at Instagram, and I'm like, dude, I just want to understand better this person's training, but nothing gets posted in an order. It's like you said, it's
Right.
not about saying, here's my training. It's about how do I get more people? How do I get more interactions?
That's what's been like not lost in translation, but I can't think of another phrase to like put there. But it's not, you can't guess anything, you can't like approximate anything
Yeah.
anymore because it's not about the training, it's about the Instagram. The focus has shifted, and I'm not saying that like the younger athletes like don't give a shit about actually making progress, but I just see I really it seems to me that like people don't care about sharing that progress unless it's going to benefit them in some form of like social media impact, engagement, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I mean, even for me, like I always have these, I try to post, I'm really into, especially as I've gotten older and I look back at my career, not in terms of anything bad or good, but I want to look back at my career and go, what could I have done better that I can coach younger people? Like, how can I make them or help them avoid some of the mistakes that I made so they can make whole new mistakes to learn from? And so it's like, dude, I got to say this in a minute and 30 seconds, preferably in 60 seconds. And I'm like, I can't, this is too involved to say. So, you do the best you can to shorten it up, but there's a lot that gets missed in that. And then, like, okay, I mean, if I post a 2-minute video, I always get messages back. You'll get more followers if you do your video under 60 seconds or something like this. And it's like, yeah, but there's this whole important level that's getting missed. And I think part of like what you just said about the monotony of it, there's a point where you're only going to do so many exercises and you're going to do a lot of this stuff over and over and over. And I think there's a lot of young lifters that don't realize that. They're like, no, I'm going to go, I need a new exercise today. I'm going to watch social media until I find a new exercise. And then I'm going to do a new exercise next week. And then next week, I'm going to do an exercise. And I have some of my online clients that are like, I'm bored. Can we do something different? I'm like, dude, I had you do that exercise for 3 weeks and you're bored? Mm-hmm. Like, don't you know that I did basically 20 to 30 exercises for fucking 15 years?
Yep, exactly, dude. And it's like, it's just a really, I don't want to, not a hard conversation, but it can be a hard conversation because it just like the way that people look and the way that lifting and training is portrayed on social media these days, it's all about Instagram. So therefore, what is Instagram? It's all about excitement and engagement and new and cool and oh shit and funny and this is cool, blah, blah, blah. So like people, I think people kind of lose their appreciation or understanding towards the fact that it is sometimes gonna be boring. It's sometimes gonna be monotonous, and it's just about chopping fucking wood or laying bricks or whatever the imagery you need to understand it. It's like you're not I don't know. It's a hard thing because like you have the podcast. The podcast is good. It's like this, maybe this is the means where it's like you expand upon the thoughts and then just hook them on Instagram. That's like a bunch of people's strategy, but it's just a weird thing. It's a weird environment we find ourselves in and like weird tools that we're using because like I know you live by the same approach that I try to where it's live, learn, and pass on. Like I'm not obviously I want to be the best power lifter that I can be. I'm still in the thick of it in regards to like competing and whatnot. But I know that no one's really gonna give a shit about my records or my numbers like when I'm like 25 years from this point. Like there's going to be somebody that comes up that beats me and there's going to be somebody that comes up that beats that guy at some point. But the thing that we're remembered by is like how we help people, how we explain things, how we leave a positive impact on whatever the fuck we're engaged in. And that's the thing, and I don't want to be like too negative about it, but that's the thing that scares the fuck out of me in regards to Instagram because I think people lose sight of that positive impact that they can leave.
Yes.
And just it falls too far into the algorithm like engagement. I need more, need more, need more, need more because it's all about like what can I get from putting my stuff out there rather than what can I give and how can I help by putting my stuff out there.
Right. And then there's the conflict that I have is like, okay, I'm growing, everything's growing, but it's growing small. And I'm like, man, if I could get sponsors for this podcast and give more time to the podcast, I could do an even better podcast. Mm-hmm. So you're like, but I don't want to sell my soul to get the money to do the podcast if I'm not putting out the good content. Mm-hmm. So you're trying to find this balance of the whole thing. And I think you're like, I talk a lot about how our society just wants to be distracted nowadays. Mm-hmm. Like we don't want to solve problems. We don't want to fix anything. We just want to be distracted so we forget about the stuff that bothers us. And so even if I think in some terms, lifting can become that distraction for people. You know, like you have the person that's training really hard in the gym and they're doing a really good job, but their whole other life sucks. And I want them to understand that, listen, if you fix the rest of your life, it's actually going to make your training better, because in the gym is just a small portion of being successful in strength or bodybuilding or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And so there's all these distractions, and it's like all we want to do is be distracted. And I actually had on the podcast, I would do a section called the quotes. And the reason I came up with that is I like, when I scroll, sometimes I dead scroll through Instagram. Mm-hmm. And I'm just amazed at the shit I see. And I'm like, God, this is depressing me on society, you know? And then I'll stop and I'll go, no, rechange your thinking. And I'll go, oh, this is cool. Okay, this is cool. This is cool. There's these cool things on here. But I think we get so distracted that we just and we're, that's cool. And I thought, you know, I'm gonna do a section on my podcast called The Quotes, where I find a cool quote and I read it, and then I just talk about it for like 10 minutes, hoping that, because this is what I do on Instagram. If I see a cool quote, like I'll capture the picture and like I'll think about it throughout the day. Like I don't just go, oh, that's a cool quote, move on. Like I'm like, no, that is actually a really cool quote. Like I need to let that sink in. Mm-hmm. And so that was my idea of that portion, which I haven't done them in a while now, but I want to try to find a way to get people to stop. And now focus on that. Like don't just keep scrolling, find one cool thing and focus on it. And mm-hmm. like if they're watching your Instagram, which everyone should go follow Joe on Instagram because he does great posts. Like you do some posts and I'm like, dude, I need to stop right now because I want to keep this thought in my head for a little while. Because what he said really makes sense. And I think we need to slow down and find some silence and just start thinking about, take more time to let stuff sink in. Not always looking for the flashy new thing coming up.
Mm-hmm. 100%, dude. And honestly, like I do a super similar thing. Like my screenshot folder on my iPhone is like full of shit that I've just seen. Mm-hmm. But I take it like, because obviously like you see my posts, like I like to write. I have aspirate, and I mean, I know everybody's like, why are you waiting to do it? And it's like, I just haven't gotten around to it, but like, I want to write books one day. I want to like actually like write stuff to help with the whole leaving the legacy impact, like helping others. And like, I enjoy writing, and that's actually something that I do as a little bit of like a thought exercise. And I think that's why I'm so good at putting my words to paper. Sometimes I'll do the screenshot thing where I'll see like a really cool post on Instagram or like something that just like sparks like, man, that was cool, or like I want to think about that or whatever. I'll screenshot it or remember it, and then I'll journal about it. Like I'll write about it and try to like just expand upon my thoughts, because that's always been the way that I actually like become productive in that type of thing. Like if I sit and think with my own thoughts, I'm so ADHD and all over the place. Like I end up thinking about a million different things. But if I actually take the time to sit and be like, what is this? Like how can I expand upon this, or how can I apply it to my own life, or some situation that I've seen or been a part of? That's where I can really like get the get the juices flowing, you know, and like think about what actually happened here, like understand the perspective. And that's another, tie that into the rest of social media, because what gets the clicks, what gets the engagement, it's reactions. Like, I mean, I don't know how political you go on this podcast, but like the Olympics are going on right now. Yeah. And how reactionary have people been surrounding the Olympics?
Huge.
It's like
absolutely
the
huge.
Opening ceremony, fucking trans people and making fun of Christianity and blah blah blah.
The guy with his ball sack hanging out.
Yeah, and then everybody's like, well, you know, like, yeah, I could see how you say that, but also like, you know, like the Greek god Dionysus is like the god of wine and was portrayed as a hermaphrodite, like both male and female in all of their literature. I don't want to call it scripture, but like literature or whatever it's called. And also on like all the old like vase artwork, they're portrayed with male and female genitals. And there's also like a bunch of white horse imagery, and like that was, maybe it's not exactly that. And people are like, no, fuck them, terrible. And then it's like the boxer's a man she's a man, she's actually a dude, fucking beating the shit out of all these other women. And then they're like, it's been confirmed. And then it's like, well, where's the actual source on that? And they're like, well, it came from the IBA. And it's like, what the International Boxing Academy? Like, what's the source on that? Like, who said that at the IBA? And it's like, oh, it's a Russian official. And it's like, oh, and he only said that after she beat a Russian athlete. And then he got her disqualified by saying that, so the Russian athlete could still have an undefeated record. And then that guy was removed for taking bribes for doing a similar thing. Like, that's interesting to talk about. And then people are still
it was
about it.
It's funny you bring that up because I was talking about that after I trained my guys this morning, and I was like, it's so funny because everybody's like, that transgender girl was fighting, and I'm like, wait a minute, like everyone keeps saying that on social media, but nobody's actually looked to see what the real problem was.
Right.
Like, she was born a girl with a vagina, but she has the XY chromosomes.
And that hasn't even been confirmed. Like but yes.
So it's like the whole, we're going completely nuts, and we don't even have all the information yet.
Exactly, dude. And it's like you to your point of just people finding the value in stopping and thinking, it's like rather than getting mad, rather than getting upset and offended or whatever, and this is both sides of the aisle.
Oh yeah, either side, they both do it.
Yeah, because I'm not even, because I won't even say my own like preferences or political affiliations or whatever on here. It's like if we all just took a second and shut the fuck up, just shut up, just stop, just chill for a sec and thought about it, or maybe like looked into it a little bit deeper, we'd all be so much better off. And
so much.
And it's just so the whole that I mean, like again, not to tangent too hard, but like the whole boxing thing with Imaine Khalif is her name, or was it? I think I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but the whole thing with that is like it's just so it's crazy to me because like I'm in a committed relationship with a beautiful woman who's very, very good at athletics.
Very good.
She's best female deadlifter in the world currently, like fucking still battling it out between her and like two other girls. So it's awesome. But how often has this girl, who I know for a verifiable fact is a biological female, like she gets periods and fucking bitches at me like every other woman does in any relationship. How many times have I seen people call her a dude on social media? They've been like, "Oh, that chick's got a dick. Oh, she's definitely a he," or like, "Oh, call her Brian" or whatever. And it just it's never gonna go away.
No, it's never gonna stop. Never.
Because people are just it's the combination of jealousy, insecurity, and just anger and whatnot. But this whole situation has just really, really accentuated that because people just don't know. And the fact that people don't know and they can't get all the information because it's held in the confidential documents or whatever the fuck. I don't know. She's from Algeria. I don't know record keeping. I don't know if they're going to produce them or if anybody even entitled to any of that or whatever. But it's like just the fact that people don't know. That's where people flip the fuck out, because shit that people don't, things that you don't know, it scares people. And they're like, well, that chick looks more male than my soft female coworkers that I'm around all day.
Who doesn't train at all, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Same could be said about Briani. It's like when she's in the middle of a water cut or like 10% body fat out from a bodybuilding competition, got a little bit more defined cheekbones and like a little more veins and muscle fullness and whatever. Normal people that don't know, which is more the population is larger than people that are familiar with this type of shit. They'll look at that and they'll be like, well, that doesn't look like any female I know. So because of the fact that makes me unsure, I hate that thing. Fuck that thing, because that's a guy. And it just drives up that polarity and argumentativeness. And then we're in the election season and everybody's just mad about everything. And then on and on and on she goes.
But what's interesting about this now is, because I like to take life into training and training into life. This same kind of thing actually happens in training, because people get this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I've always been told. And if you tell them something different, they go apeshit. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. You can't do that. You're on steroids. You're a genetic freak. You're this, you're that. And it's like, just ask me questions. I'll explain it to you. Like, I'll explain exactly why I feel the way I do. But they get so crazy because it's not what they've always been told. Or like because I backed off more than a lot of people did to get as strong as I was. And part of that was because of my sleep. But a lot of people are like, that's bullshit. That's not right. And it's like, do you know how many people I've helped? And one of the things I help them is like, dude, just take a step back, man. Like, take a step back, look, let's focus on your recovery and get that as high as we can and make sure you're recovered. If you have great recovery and you can train all the time, that's awesome, man. Keep doing it. But just because everyone does that doesn't necessarily mean you have that recovery. But you kind of get that same crazy reaction, and if you tell people, I think I was watching one of your posts earlier, or we were talking earlier about, tell a power lifter he needs to actually start moving and get out of one fucking plane. That's bullshit. I don't have to do that. I'm just a power lifter. I'm not an athlete. And that you're like, gee, I'm just telling you, like, relax.
Yeah. And that's it's tribalism, dude. Like, we're opinionated creatures, and we find strength in community. And sometimes that community takes form of like political affiliations, or like opinions regarding like trans people, or female participation in boxing, or whatever the fuck. Or it could be like raw lifting versus geared lifting. Because look at that, like, you're a multiply lifter, or we're a multiply lifter. That's where you spent most of your time in your powerlifting career. I started in single ply, but I was a fucking teenager. Like 90% of any appreciable amount of time spent in this sport has been raw for me. That doesn't mean that we can't get along. But when I said earlier on the podcast, I think we were recording then, where like where I got into arguments in like the early 2010s, there were a lot of people in multiply, or like West Side dudes, or like guys who did a lot of like undulating training in that aspect. I looked at and I'm like, you guys are fucking stupid. This is fucking dumb. What do you mean? That's dumb as hell. Like, what do you mean you're not going to use a straight bar at any point up until the meet? That's fucking stupid, bro. Like, how are you going to be prepared to fucking handle that? And then some people would be successful with it, and some people wouldn't. It's like we're just opinionated creatures. And like, I wish, and obviously I can't change like the way that I approach things, but like, from my perspective now, because I'm the guy that people look at and they're like, that's fucking stupid, bro. What the fuck are you doing? Because I'm thinking a little outside the box and a little bit differently with like the plyometric work and the multiplanar work, and more like sports focused performance stuff integrated to powerlifting. People look at it and they're like, this is fucking dumb. You just got to squat. How is a box jump going to help you with your deadlift? That's fucking stupid, bro. And it's like, yeah, if you think it is, it is. But I can explain to you why it might help with more like quad involvement and explosive power off the ground, might build up proprioception to help you push harder when you have a barbell in your hands. And it might help. It's always a might. It could do this, it could do that. I've seen it help such and such people at this such and such level. But it's just easy to get opinionated, man. And like,
I think going back to that whole social media thing, I think that we live by wanting distractions. And I think that short tidbit and our short attention span now exacerbates that whole problem. Just get emotional and get upset about it, and then fuck it, find another distraction.
Yep.
Where I'm like, let's just slow the fuck down. And I think about this because I've always said I should have lived in the 1800s. I should have been in the Old West. And so I think about today's life, and I think about them, and I go, okay, so you didn't have running water, you didn't have this, but you know what? At the end of the day, you sat down and watched the sunset. Like, when you were working, you didn't have your headphones on, you weren't listening to a podcast, you're just working. Like, their minds must have been so much clearer than ours. And I'm betting that they had better ability to adapt to situations and think about stuff instead of just jumping to a reaction.
I'm certain of it, dude.
And it's funny because I got another one. A friend sent me a post, and it had this poem called "Lost" by David Wagner, and I have it right here. So this poem like got in my head, and I'm like, dude, I got to read this a couple times. So I saved it, and I've been taking notes on it. And I want to do another podcast on the strength and silence, and part of it comes from this poem. But it's like if I would have read it once and just said that's cool, I didn't take that much from it. But reading it a few times and reading it and percolating on it for a while, like I keep coming up with all these other things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think you miss so much. It's the same thing. I mean, when I first learned to actually start powerlifting and start learning conjugate and all that stuff, if I would have just said, oh, that's the program, okay, I'm going to do it, what would I have got from it? But going, hey, this is going to be my program. I'm going to learn this program. I'm going to bend it to me, and I'm going to be vested in this program. I ended up learning a whole lot more, and I ended up changing it and expanding it and just continually learning to where I still change stuff today.
Mm-hmm. And I think like tying that whole thing together with like the individuals in the 1800s or like 1900s or whatever time frame it is, where like they didn't have the distraction, they didn't have the earbuds or the phones or whatever. It's presence of mind. Like
Mm-hmm.
people have lost that skill to be able to just like to be able to just be present. Like I told Chad before we were on this podcast, like I'm gonna go record some of my fucking content shit later today. That's a video that I'm gonna make because I'm sure you just saw it. Or if not, you're going to see it soon because that Menno Henselmans just posted a study where like they actually put people in training environments. I think it was like 30 lifters, and they had like half the group look at Instagram in the middle of their workouts, and then the other half like just didn't. They were just nothing going on, and like there's a marked decrease in performance of people who were looking at Instagram versus the people that weren't. And who knows if that's due to some like dopaminergic weird like brain communication shit or just some type of distraction thing. But one of the best things that anybody can do, and this is where it's like I will make an absolute statement, because most of the time it's like, well, this might or this might, but like everybody, I'm so confident that everybody would see so much improvement in their lives, whether it's during training or whatever, if they just took a couple of moments during the day to just sit and be in silence and
Mm-hmm.
think about who they are, what it is that they have going on, what it is that they have to do or whatever. Because like we've lost that skill. Like even me, man, like I'm sure you do the same thing. Like it's too easy these days to throw the AirPods in and be like, I'm just gonna have fucking music going on, or I'm gonna have like a YouTube video or some podcast or an audio book or something when I'm doing shit around the house. And it's like, yeah, okay, taking up, maybe it's multitasking. Maybe I'm learning or like doing something while I'm doing something else. But how can you expect to be the best that you can be at the one thing that you're doing if you're doing a bunch of other shit at the same time? Like one of the best recommendations or one of the first recommendations I make to my clients, like if they're struggling with a technique cue or like it's something in regards to like executing a movement to like the degree that I need them to or they want to or whatever, is like take a second, just take a second before you do the lift. Because I understand you don't want to be thinking when you're like squatting, but before you squat, if you literally just sit down, put your fucking phone down, sit and be like, okay, what do I need to do here? My knees keep caving in and my feet keep pronating and I look like I'm fucking doing a good morning out of the hole. What do I have to do? All right, Joe told me I have to keep my lats tighter, pull my like elbows into my brace and like brace really hard and push through the middle of my foot. Just think about what you have to do while you're doing the thing. And holy shit, I can't believe that that's some like crazy thought provoking thing to say because it's going to help you do the thing better. just being present, having the presence of mind to like actually analyze and think about what you're doing while you're doing it, whether it's a skill you're trying to perform or like sitting with your significant other. Like shit, man, like 2024, how often do people go on dates and then they're both just fucking
Like
like, oh yeah,
they're never
I'll
actually present. They're just like in this weird, not future, not past, not present, like just zoned out almost.
Mhm. Exactly, man. And it's a real it just ties into the whole
I
conversation of
think
like
back
social
to,
media
I
being
don't know,
weird.
did you, you're old enough that you probably trained without a phone or access to that.
Yeah,
Like
yep.
you remember when, like, I remember training in my basement as a kid, and you're like, okay, you're doing heavy sets, so you're doing 5x5, so you're taking 2 or 3 minutes in between, and you do your five and you sit down if it's squats, and you're like, and you finally catch your breath, and then you start thinking about, okay, I got another five I got to do, and you
Mhm.
start thinking and visualizing it, and you get up and do it. And nowadays you see people, and I do this too. There's times where I take my phone in the gym and I'm like, oh, set's done. Once on Instagram,
Mhm.
and so there's no real thought into. I mean, it's different for me because I can shut it on and off really good now. But it's still, how much better would it be for me to just sit there and think about getting ready for my next set instead of getting
Mhm.
on my fucking phone?
Yeah.
And I do, like, I tell, I'm really big on walking. I think walking is huge. I think like the 10-minute walks after meals that Stan does is
Mhm.
huge. But everybody wants to take their phone with them. Everybody wants to listen to something. I go, one of the things I do for sure is I do not, well, I'll do videos when I come back from my walks, but I won't let myself answer text or emails or anything when I'm on my walks. And, I love riding my BMX bike. Dude, my phone's in my pack.
Mhm.
I don't listen to nothing. I'm just out riding and I'm enjoying the fact that, hey, I'm 52 and I can ride this cool ass 20-inch BMX bike, and I'm out here and I can feel the breeze and the sun, and like, dude, this is awesome. This is great. And I don't think people understand the power that they can get from that. And even if you take it into training, okay, now I'm actually living in the present, and I'm grateful as fuck for what I'm doing right now.
Mhm.
So then my body's down into a parasympathetic state, and it's actually recovering, and I'm actually digesting good, and I'm healing. And like, that's the shit that makes you better from training.
Mhm.
And I don't think
Yeah.
people correlate all that stuff.
No, and they and I'm sure they don't, because I mean, dude, like I didn't know you were 52. You're 52.
Yeah.
I didn't know you're that fucking old. Goddamn,
I'm an
dude. Good
old
for you.
motherfucker.
That's you're older. That's Brianni's dad is fucking 52. That's crazy to me. I had no idea. That's awesome. But he's actually, I'm coaching him into his third powerlifting meet ever
Oh, that's
in this.
great.
So it's fucking awesome. But I was saying, like, there so many people don't realize that how interconnected it all is, because it's so easy to be distracted.
Mhm.
But like, what do you get out of that distraction? Even if it's a little bit of a response, like we all, like you said it earlier on the podcast, like it's easy to fall into that hole of like scrolling on Instagram, being like, that's fucking stupid. That's fucking stupid. That's fucking stupid. And getting that negative like feedback
Mm-hmm.
from it. And even though it's just on your phone, that still tells your brain like, hey, stress, bad
Mm-hmm.
reaction, and doing that when you're trying to recover from a set, when you're trying to recover from a training session, it's one of the most counterintuitive things that you can do, because the conversation about the nervous system states like parasympathetic versus sympathetic, that's that like whole umbrella term is like one of the biggest areas that I've actually like sought improvement over the past like 4 or 5 years. And I swear that's a huge component of how I've been able to continue to progress into like at 31 now. And I've been able to continue to put pounds on my total, pounds on my total, pounds on my total, because I take that part so seriously. Like even going so far as the crazy holistic shit. Like we have a cold plunge in the
Mm-hmm.
backyard and a sauna and I do the 10-minute walks post meals. I do the intentional like breathing exercises while I'm in the cold plunge and all that shit. But like people just don't, it's easy to think about things in vacuums or like
Little
little
compartments.
little compartments, where it's like this is just my training, so I just have to worry about my training. This is my relaxed time at home, so I just have to worry about my relaxed time at home. This is just my work and blah blah blah. But we're human body, human being, like brain piloting the meat suit.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't just fucking compartmentalize that
Yeah,
shit.
it
Compartmentalization is a survival tactic for us so that we can get through something. It's not supposed to be an all the time thing.
exactly. That's if there was one thing that I could get everyone to understand, it would be to start looking at the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and why not anyway? If you can learn to control your mind better and control your feelings, I guarantee your relationship's going to get better. If you can learn to
Mm-hmm.
go, hey, if I communicate better, it's going to create this less stress, which is going to help my training. But what's also going to help you communicate with the people around you, the people that you love.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Exactly.
it really all intertwines. And this is one of the big arguments I have about balance. I have a lot of discussions with people that are like, you can't have balance if you want to be the best in the world. And I don't know if we ever talked about it, but I think no, you can't have completely equal balance if you want to be the best in the world, but you have to have some sort of balance.
Mm-hmm.
Like if your all-time records, Brianna's one of the greatest female powerlifters of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee if your guys' relationship is shit, both of your training's probably not going to be very good.
Absolutely.
But if your relationship is great and you're there and you're supporting each other, your training's going to go awesome.
Mm-hmm. So I think, and this just popped into my head. So it could for sure be like expanded upon, but I don't think you need balance, like you said, but I think you need understanding. I think you need that understanding and acceptance that like while you're in this period of time, like Bree, this is her fifth competition in 12 months. Like she's done a
It's a
lot
lot.
over this. It's a lot, dude.
And that
And
because that's powerlifting and bodybuilding too.
yeah, she got her, so it's August 4th. She got her pro card in women's physique July 24th of 2023. And now we're in August of 2024, and she's like a week and a half out of a powerlifting competition. So she's done one bodybuilding show and four powerlifting meets. And in three of those powerlifting meets, she's broken an all-time world record.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot. But knowing that, it is a lot and it takes a lot out of her, that's where the communication and the understanding is paramount. Because like we have absolutely not been able to like do normal couple shit. Like as funny as it is, people are continually like, and I call her my wife sometimes, but it's like we're not married, but we've lived together for 4 years. Like she's my life partner. But people are like, why don't you just
You guys moved to Vegas together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's a funny story because actually, the first time we hung out as boyfriend girlfriend, I invited her to my family Thanksgiving and just introduced her as my girlfriend without talking to her because I was like, it's happening whether you like it or not, and you can tell me no, but like this is my girlfriend Bree, and she's like,
So
what? And I'm
when
like,
you said that, did you kind of look and see what face she
yeah,
made?
yeah, and she was like, hi. And I was like, sick. I was like, good, fuck yeah, all right, we're cool. But yeah, like I plan to spend my life with this lady, and it's like we're best friends and we work really well. But like this past year, we have not been able to have like a normal relationship. Like we're not going on many dates. We're not doing a lot of stuff together other than training and working and like getting closer to her goals and my goals and whatever else. It's just like we have entered that situation having had the conversations that were required to basically like set up the parameters of like, this is what's going on right now. We understand that like this isn't a forever thing,
Mm-hmm.
because like you said earlier, I'm the same way. I genuinely believe like I don't want to say the less you care about powerlifting or the less you care about your athletics, but the less of a death grip you have on it, and the more like understanding that it is both one of it's a benchmark and like a core aspect of my life. But I also know that all it takes is one quad tendon rupture or one like nerve injury or whatever for it to go out the window. You have to understand that it isn't the end all be all. It can absolutely be a priority, but priorities change as you go through life, and that's okay.
Well, it was like you said too earlier, where it's like my name's only going to be remembered for powerlifting for so long. Like,
Right.
and at some point in our lives, and I'm to that point, I could probably be a lot stronger than I wanted to right now, but I'm like, there's a point where you're just holding on, and where now I'm just holding on as much as I can. Like, you can't stay strong your whole life. It's just not possible.
Right. And I mean, and that's the thing though, like you might be able to, but if you do, that life of yours is not going to be as long or as fruitful as you would like it to be.
Yes.
At least in my from the things that I've seen, because I've had that same conversation with, like I just told you, I'm coaching Brian Terry, Bree's dad, who's 52. I have oh, I don't know what the actual, I think it's like 7 or 8 at this point, but I have like some just under 10 individuals who are all like 55 plus
Mm-hmm.
on my coaching roster. And I honestly, I love working with the masters folks because it's just a different type of appreciation. And because I went to Midwest regionals with 2 of my masters lifters, and then went to uh, mountain regionals in Utah with 2 more of them. And just because it was like back to back, and I had all these conversations about like continued participation in the sport, it got me thinking about like, what is that gonna look like for me? Because I've just topically, like I've talked about, and I said earlier, like I'm still in the thick of it because I do think that I can do better than what I've done and like be stronger, like
Mm-hmm.
actually hit stars. And being 31, I still have time.
You have a
Like,
lot of time, actually.
right. And it's like I fully understand that, but at the same time, I've always, especially as like a younger dude or like in my mid 20s, I always looked at it as like once I hit like 35, 40, I'm gonna retire. And it's like I'm just I can't do this anymore. But then I see these masters lifters and I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna retire per se, but I might, and this is going to be up to me. This is like a thing that I'm going to have to figure out for myself. I may get to a point where it's like, well, I'm not going to retire, but I could just be the guy who still shows up to a meet and maybe just does it beltless. I mean, look at Trevor
Mm-hmm.
Jaffe. Do you know Trevor? Have you
I
ever talked
don't.
to him?
I know of him, and we've actually
Okay.
messaged before, but I've never in person. We've never sat down and talked.
Oh, cool. He's another great coach. He's very, very good at what he does. But like to tie that into the conversation, like he just did a entirely beltless meet
Yeah.
just because he wanted to. He used to be a guy who was like chasing all-time world records, chasing legitimate like all-time PRs. But Trevor, I think, is 44 now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I think about that for my own self, and I'm like, man, I might be, because I don't want to not participate in the sport. And it's like I might be one of those guys where it's like, well, maybe like not like lifetime goal. I think I can hit 900 pounds at 242 in sleeves in squat. Like I want to do that. But let's say I do that when I'm 35, hitting a 600-pound squat when I'm 40 is still pretty fucking cool,
Yeah.
and pairing that with also like focusing more on health and like just getting away from the actual like finish line as being the goal. Like we were talking about Instagram being like we're just so focused on the highlight reel and the big
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and actually just enjoying the journey and the process of doing it. And I think that's one of the reasons I admire masters lifters so much, because it's the exact, like the epitome.
And I think that's more what it is. It's not as like, it's not this pinpointed focus goal. It's more of, I'd like to compete and I want to have fun while I'm doing it. And for me, it's weird for me because I there's part of me that doesn't want to do any masters competitions because I've already been at such a high level. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of like, yeah, but a lot of masters are guys that are getting into it later in life, and I don't want to come in there and like just fucking try to smash anything. But like, I like right now, well, first of all, I'm getting my back healed up, but like, I'm like, man, I would like to do some more Highland games. And I'm like, master shot put, that'd be fun. And so like, I don't know if I'll compete in powerlifting again. I haven't ruled it out because I still love training heavy. But yeah, it's just it's different. And then you're like, okay, I don't want to get so wrapped up into it like when I was younger, because I do want to be healthier. And the fact of the matter is there's hardly any 400-pound 70-year-old men out there. Mm-hmm. So at some point I have to let myself keep getting smaller, which I am slowly, and you get smaller, you're not going to be as strong as you were to some extent anyway. But it's an interesting area for sure. Mm-hmm. And then I think like what you were saying earlier with you and Brianna, it's like, no, I think you guys do. You still have, the balance thing is, to me, is like the balance of scales of justice. Mm-hmm. If I'm doing this or this, man, I'm in balance. Right. I haven't tipped a scale over. So like right now you're like, hey, Brianna's having this year. She's kicking ass. She's doing this shit. We've actually communicated and talked about it. So we're going to be a little here right now. We're not going to be doing so much couple stuff. We're going to be focusing more on our training, but you guys have communicated. So your balance is still good. Mm-hmm. And then maybe you do a competition and then maybe it comes here, but you guys are still in balance. It's just not perfect balance. And if we're talking balance, who the hell has a perfectly equal balanced life anyway? I don't know anybody.
Exactly, dude. And it's like, just look at I can't remember where I saw this, but like one of the most simple but profound things I've seen in terms of like communication and like couple shit is like, 'cause everybody hears like, oh, a good marriage or a good relationship is 50-50. Absolutely fucking not. No, it isn't.
I hate that. Yeah.
A good relationship, whether it's like platonic or romantic or professional or whatever, it's always in flux. It's always the scale of justice going up and down. Sometimes it's 70-30, sometimes it's 60-40, sometimes it's 90-10. Mm-hmm. And yeah, those periods of time where it's 90-10, that probably fucking sucks for somebody. But if you have that conversation and the understanding, it's like, hey, it's where we're at right now, and we're going to make it through it,
Yeah, it's almost like the more it's more important to have communication and know that when one is in a stronger situation, they're going to give a little more because they have a little more to give. And when one's in a little weaker situation, the other one's going to pick up. Mm-hmm. And that's fine because that person's going to do the very same if it flip-flops for you.
Yep, exactly, dude. And that's fucking on communication and like good collaboration, whether it's whatever the relationship is,
Mm-hmm. So one of the things I was thinking about, because I know that you study and you're always researching and looking for better things, I wanted to talk about the point where it goes from science to art.
Or magic.
Or magic. I mean, because I feel like I've always kind of been blue collar. Mm-hmm. I don't mind researching it. I don't mind the studies. But like once I go into the studies, I start looking into them and I go, wait a minute, but what about this? What about this? What about this? And it's like, for me, there's this part of like, yeah, okay, your studies say this. This is what I've seen worked. Let's start with this and be willing to try it. And then I often wonder about new people that come into lifting with today's social media. Mm-hmm. And like, I just want to go, listen, just go find an old book, read it, and start training. And don't worry about all this shit yet. Like, get your basics down. Because I think people jump in. I mean, like somebody's like, well, I want to lose weight, so I'm gonna see how Ronnie Coleman trained. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, are you going to look at what Ronnie Coleman first did, or are you looking at what he did when he's the best in the world?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like an interesting, especially with your online training. Do you have people that are new and they come and then they want it to be some fancy ass thing, and you're like, no, you need to start like here with the basics.
All the time, dude. And it's always like, that's one of my favorite things to think about. Like, not the guy coming to me and being like, oh, I want to do the crazy thing, but the whole, the integration and the blend between like what actually is like science or like evidence based, and then the magic and the art over here. Because like there's a lot of like, rather than thinking about one client, and just because I'm like more biased towards bodybuilding right now, a huge thing in bodybuilding has been like, bodybuilding is full of, pardon the brashness, but like we were talking about Mike and Jared earlier, it's full of fucking dorks. It's full of nerds that really, really love thinking about the scientific aspect of stuff,
I think that's
and being
true.
like, well, this had, and I mean, so is powerlifting. Like powerlifting has gotten a big uptick of folks who are very, very focused on the data and the volume, and like like the trending of this with like all these spreadsheets in Excel, and like, according to this RPE projection, this will put you at blah blah blah, whatever the
Mm-hmm.
fuck, you know. And it's like, it's not a bad thing, but with bodybuilding, sometimes it becomes really apparent how like common sense isn't exactly the most common thing. Because like the thing I'm thinking of is, in bodybuilding, like huge amounts of research and literature have been put forth or put toward like what actually causes like the most hypertrophy to occur. Is it the mechanical tension? Is it the range of motion? Is it the progressive overload? Is like, what is actually the root cause of these signals being sent that is like, grow more muscle, grow more muscle? And there's a huge proponent, or like a huge school of thought, where people are very much more focused on like lengthened lifting, and even like doing lengthened partials, which is like, if you were to do like a big a dumbbell bench press, but then like go all the way down, but don't come up to the peak contraction, basically just
So
hang
you're
out in
you're
the.
almost you're doing a partial through the longest range.
Yes, exactly. And like there's a huge
Didn't Ronnie Coleman always did that, didn't he?
That's the thing. That's the thing. That's where because I'm not in bodybuilding. I'm not a bodybuilder. I've never competed in bodybuilding, but I'm a dude who loves lifting weights. I love the science and love the research. I have my degrees and shit, but at the same time, I'm a dumb fucking meathead. I'm stupid as hell when it comes to this stuff, and I just like to fuck myself up at the gym sometimes. So it's like, did we really need like funded research and scientists to tell us, oh, if you spend more time at the shittiest part of the movement and make it hurt the most, that's going to cause the most muscle to be built? Did we have to fund that? I struggle to kind of think about like, why was this necessary? And then, even to go even further with that,
Oh, you're in my head, man.
you think, and I know I'm sticking with bodybuilding, but you could apply it to powerlifting too,
Same
with
thing, yeah.
with reverse bands or like accommodating resistance and whatnot. People are like, well, you shouldn't do forced reps or assistance reps, or like, why are you reverse banding a squat? That doesn't make any goddamn sense. Like, why are you helping yourself at the worst part of the movement? That doesn't make any sense. And it's like, okay, yeah, I get your perspective, but like we talked about earlier on the call, stop and think and maybe like just ponder it for a moment. Because if I'm doing a forced rep on an incline barbell bench, if I can hit 315 for 10, but then my training partner is like, all right, we're gonna fucking do an all you bro, like upright row or whatever, and helps me through two additional ones, it's still lengthened position, really fucking shitty. And yeah, it might not be 315. It's not 315 for 12. I did 315 for 10 with two assisted reps.
Mm-hmm.
But those two assisted reps put me into the territory where it sent more of the signal for hypertrophy, or like a reverse banded squat. if the guy can't squat 800 pounds, but you throw reverse bands on and he hits 800, and it's only 800 for like the top portion of the movement, but he's more familiar with and the tissue is more prepared for the load that he wants to achieve at some point. Don't you fucking think that that would fucking help,
Yeah.
guys? And we don't, and that's where it's like maybe if we got like I wish that sometimes there were dumber, more like boneheaded people doing the research than the guys who are extremely analytical. Because I think if like, and not to be braggadocious again, but Chad, I feel like if you and I were in some of these like research studies and we were just like, yeah, that makes sense, but like, what about like, wouldn't it just make more sense to do this? I feel like that could help a lot of this
Oh,
because
I
it's
totally agree.
the research comes out and it's like, yeah, that makes sense, or like, oh, that's cool. But then the magic, the art is taking the actual evidence and like the piece of like the research study over here, like the bullet point that is like lengthened partials are better for hypertrophy, or like I don't know, potentiation sets. So like potentiation sets can cause greater neuromuscular activation for 1 rep max strength, and then it's like, okay, so these things make sense over here in this little vacuum, but that doesn't mean you should do only lengthened partials in your training or
Mhm.
only potentiation sets. But then it's like, well, how can I apply this to my dumb meathead shit? And it's like, oh, maybe if I do some forced reps, even though it doesn't count towards a rep PR, maybe that's going to cause more muscle growth. And maybe that's not bad. Maybe it's not bad if your dude helps you out force some reps like at a certain period of your training. Or maybe like the potentiation stuff, it's like, maybe if I do some jumps before a deadlift, it could help me pull more because it's going to fire up my neuromuscular
Yeah.
capacity to engage the shit in the way that I need to.
Well, I go back and I go, some of these studies you're doing, like guys have been doing this for years. Like you're just
Exactly.
doing a study to prove what we already knew worked.
Exactly. And I made not to make it all about jumping, but I made a post about that when there were a couple of guys who like made posts about how plyometrics and powerlifting are fucking stupid and like this is a waste of time and you're just gonna cause injury. And I'm like, you guys realize the guy who is literally called Dr. Squat, Fred Hatfield, wrote a whole goddamn slew of articles about how he incorporated plyometrics into his fucking training in the goddamn 80s,
Yeah.
right? It's like wait a
Oh,
minute,
I
guys.
think
Like people have been doing this stuff.
when I was on the table talk, I went through this, and I'm still kind of doing this right now, because now I don't really have any events planned. I like to mess around with shit, and I
Mm-hmm.
like to just throw different shit at myself. And if it works and it seems good, I'll do it with my clients.
Mm-hmm.
So I got back into this. I loved HIIT training. I started bodybuilding because that's all the information I had when I started, and I
Mm-hmm.
loved Arthur Jones and Mike Mentzer HIIT stuff. It's just fucking fun to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I wonder if I could throw some of this in with my powerlifting stuff and see what'll happen. And I was talking to Dave about it on the table talk. And I go, it's working. Like my guys are getting stronger, and I got them doing like this old school kind of bodybuilding shit. And
Mm-hmm.
Dave makes this great point. He goes, well, is it really the HIIT stuff, or is it just that you changed it up? And I went, wow, yeah, that's so simple. It's fucking profound. It could simply be the fact that we changed it that made it work.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I look at these studies, I think about that. It's like, well, what were these people doing? And more than anything, like the studies that impress me the most that I've ever read are placebo studies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm absolutely fascinated by what the human mind can do. So I'm like, I say this often. If I have a program that I think is like, this is the best program this person could ever do, but I know it's a style that I hate, I would rather put them on a program that's maybe scientifically a little less, but they actually really enjoy it,
Mm-hmm.
because I'll bet you they're going to get more gains just because they enjoy it, just because they think it's going to work. So like to me, it's like you can do all the studies in the world you want, but there's some things you can never study.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody's mindset, if they believe in themselves, if they, at one point I had somebody, because I used to fluctuate my weight when I was powerlifting because I didn't like 385. I felt really strong, but I didn't like carrying it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I would drop down to like 350 or 360, and people are like, how do you do that so easily? And I go, honestly, I start telling myself throughout the day that I'm dropping weight.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, do you change your diet and everything? I go, I cut back a few calories. I add a little bit of cardio. I go, but more than anything, I just tell myself all day long that I'm losing weight.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, really? And I go, yeah, it's really all I do.
Mm-hmm. And that's always been one of the most, like, to tie that into something that I do with my more, well, not just my elite lifters, but like just some people that have like particular, it just depends, like, because some people like have like a mental block or whatever, but like one of the, like, tying it back to the whole presence of mind thing, the power of the mind is like the most like unable to be like measured and just remarkable things in nature, because I've seen huge amounts of success, and with the people that I've given it to, including Briani and Hunter Henderson, who's a female all-time world record holder in squat. She squats like 683 at 181. It's insane.
Unbelievable,
um,
too.
Crazy.
Absolutely.
But having, like, doing meditative practices prior to their training, doing some actual like guided meditations in regards to like either confidence or execution or like a particular thought process, to just drive up that, like, hey, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I am this. I am the best in the world. I am such and such. It's like there's the whole like toxic positivity thing where it's like, I'm the greatest, I'm the
Yes.
greatest, I'm the greatest. Like, I think that's a little bit too far, when in the way that people like just completely buy into their own stuff, buy into their own bullshit. But if you have like a task or a thing that you need to achieve, like you want to drop weight, or I want to like not have any fear when I get under a barbell or whatever, sometimes the best thing you can do is convince yourself that that's what you're doing, or
Mm-hmm.
that's what you're going to experience. Because if there's ever any doubt in your mind, that's that first little, that sliver that's going to cause that thing to fucking unravel
Mm-hmm.
and open. It's like you have your will has to be iron and steadfast first before you make any type of physical armor.
And just think, I think with the over the top stuff, I think that's almost like in the Matrix when they said they
Yeah.
made the Matrix perfect and people were rejecting it.
Hmm.
I think there's too much, dude. Your body's not even going to believe your shit now. It knows everything's fake. But just
Yes.
think,
Yeah.
if you did, and I've never thought about doing that actually before training. I mean, I kind of do it naturally myself,
Mhm.
but actually setting it up for your clients to do this before you train. Just think about how much more consistency they're going to have with great training sessions.
Yes, a thousand, because it forces the thing that we were talking about, that presence of mind. That's
Yes.
why I love doing it. For anybody listening, like,
So over a
download.
year, you could have 30 bad sessions, but if you do that, that's 30 good sessions, 30 more good
Exactly,
sessions.
exactly. And it's like, even if it is like a bad session in terms of like what you did in that session, it still gives you a better like state of mind to
Mhm.
be in, to analyze and like figure out what went wrong, how can I improve it next time.
Yes.
But Chad, download, and I know we're still on the air, so anybody listening, download the Balance app. It's called Balance. They give you a free first year, and that's literally what I use for all my clients and for my own meditative stuff. Just because I can't remember what it was, but I think like some neurologist group or something like dumped like a couple $1 million into this app, so they just decided to do like the first year free, and then I think everything after is like $60 or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but I use, because we're talking, well, again, this it's a good thing to tie in the entire conversation, because we were talking about the vestibular system and like balance and eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a huge component of coordination and like figuring out where you are in space. One of my favorite meditations to use before I squat personally, and it doesn't work for everybody, but like if someone downloads the app, you should try it, is using the ease into work meditation with the focus. because it literally will have you, it walks you through a situation for like 5 minutes where it talks, the narrator tells you to pick out certain things in the room, like find something to focus on for 5 seconds and describe it in your head. What color is it? What does the texture look like? And it's like you're using your actual like visual cortex to focus on things, and because that's it's a tech. I like I think Chad, you've had experience with panic attacks,
Mm-hmm.
and what is a way for people to cope with or process panic attacks? It's like focusing on something to touch or to look at or to like sense, because it gives someone an actual like anchor point in that moment in time
Mm-hmm.
to increase what that presence of mind to understand that like the world isn't ending and they're not dying. And
Right.
it's like that's a panic attack. But when we're inside of a training session, what do we want? We want that same presence of mind. We want that same focus and attentiveness. So let's use those same strategies to like upregulate that part of your brain
Mm-hmm.
and be like, hey, I'm very aware of what's going on right now. And it's just a more consistent way to take like 3 to 5 minutes, because all these meditations or all those in that context are 3 to 5 minutes. Takes 3 to 5 minutes before you get under the bar, and it just makes shit so much more consistent.
No, that completely makes sense to me. Just pulling you right straight into the present and
Mm-hmm.
getting you focusing on what you're doing at that very moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
Past
Yep.
doesn't matter, present or future doesn't matter. What are you doing right now? Are you giving everything 100 right now?
Yep. That's exactly it, dude.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know you got some shit to do today, and so we're gonna wrap this up. But damn, I have so many things we could possibly talk about. Um, so I'd like to get you on again. I know you're busy all the time, and I would still love to get Brianna on. And I've messaged Hunter a couple times about trying to get her on too, because they're like
Has Hunt,
just your group in Vegas is crazy. But like
I
Vegas is actually there's a lot of good lifters and stuff down there.
Dude, and that it's one of the reasons that like I'm really happy Bree and I moved here, is because it's just the population density of not just good power lifters, because there's a lot of great power lifters here, but just really great athletes
Mm-hmm.
and people who are just doing stuff, like it's very entrepreneurial focused and very like goal driven. And while there is a lot of the social media bullshit, it's still a good group of people to surround yourself with, because it's like the old cliches are cliches for a reason, but it's like you're the average of the five people you spend the most time
Mm-hmm.
with. I probably spend the most time with Hunter Henderson, Brianni Terry, Jared Feather, and I don't know if I have a fucking fifth one, but like those are still really very, very effective, very,
Well, and
very
I
good
think, I mean, I think,
people.
say you're around people that are also trying to improve every aspect of their life, and you're around people that are doing a little bit of meditation and thinking about, like, you kind of have your buddies that you hang out with that you just bullshit and get stupid with,
Yeah.
which is cool every now and then, but you need to kind of spend more of your life with people that you have fun with, but you're also like striving to continue to make yourself better. And that's almost a rarity from what I know. I mean, I have a lot of people that I know and a lot of friends, but there's very few of them that can sit down and have a conversation like we just had, where you're
Yeah.
actually really like, no, I'm just trying to be better. I'm just trying to be a better human. And if I can
Hmm.
be better at lifting and do all this other stuff and make a positive mark in the world, that's a big thing too.
Absolutely, dude. And I think that should be everybody's goal. But if you've messaged Hunter and she hasn't seen it, like her Instagram is fucking crazy, dude. Like she's got, so like people are always trying to get a hold of her. So I'll talk to her about it. I'll bring it up to Bree too, because I know she'd be totally down to get on here. And you and I can for sure plan another one like for probably September,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, just 'cause we're gonna be in Ireland for like 2.5 weeks. But beyond that, like I'm absolutely, dude. I love conversations like this and just talking about like the actual the magic aspect. That's the fun part, man.
Yeah, that's like I love the science. I love all the different studies, but it's like I still love what's the part that makes that person the absolute best? What's the part that drives you to do an all-time world record?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I kind of know what some of your training is. I kind of know how you split it up. But I know lots of guys with all-time ones who all train different.
Mm-hmm.
So it always goes back to that mindset to me, and I'm fascinated by that mindset. And like, I'll walk away from this podcast thinking about some of the shit we talked about, and I know I'm going to have more ideas and I'm going to have more thoughts. And like, I love that I can talk to people and walk away still thinking about more stuff and taking stuff away. Like I'm not a classroom learner. I'm a learner by like hanging out and talking to better people. That's what gets me excited.
Dude, literally look at what you said about me, where it's like how I was always trying to be around different people and training at different gyms and traveling. Like, that's the exact same deal over here. Like, I've never been the guy, like, obviously I read and do all that stuff, but like, I really think the value for anybody is inside of other people.
Yes. I truly believe that.
Yeah.
So it's Joe Sullivan _AOD.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys aren't following him, follow him, man. I'll do a link when I get some shit up on there, but because he does a lot. You do a lot of really cool posts. I don't know if I always respond to him, because sometimes I'm just like, fuck, just tired of this fucking social media.
Hey, dude, it's totally good.
You still have one of my favorite videos of all time.
Which one?
The one where you bend that fucking bar in that shitty
man,
deal. I smile every fucking time I see that video.
It's never gonna die. Like, I literally looked at the original YouTube video. The original YouTube video has over 20 million views now, and
really?
It's like, it's never gonna go away. The thing was
like, it's just so classic. Like, everybody's like, fuck yeah, I wish I could do that.
and I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I did it, but it's also like, oh, I fucked my neck up.
You tweaked yourself.
5 years after it, so whatever, man. It's funny. It's my little claim to fame. I always said that was the thing people were going to forever know me by. Like, even if because at that point I had no all-time world records, and I'm like, man, if I ever do anything, there's still just going to be.
Hey, do you know Joe Sullivan? No, who the hell's that guy? You know the dude that bent that fucking bar in the gym? Oh yeah, I know that guy.
and it's the fucking truth, man. Because that's literally the go-to. It's like, oh yeah, you're the guy, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm the fucking guy. It's cool.
All right, thanks, Joe. I'm gonna hit my outro here, and until next time.
Awesome, thank you, dude.
Thanks for listening to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast. For more information, please visit couragebarbell.com. Until next time.